grand boulevards, towering spires, harmonious technology, resonant frequencies, peace, meaning. Where are we? This all seems too familiar. But where did it come from? From our past? From our future? Maybe it's not even ours exactly. Maybe it belongs to a lost civilization, unceremoniously ripped away from us. Maybe it comes from a dream. Tartaria. The Tartarian kings, foreseeing their destiny, scattered traces of their great empire across the globe. Then came the mud flood, and Tartaria was destroyed and covered up in a cataclysm. Some say this is all nonsense. Others say it's the greatest conspiracy in human history. But what if both sides are wrong? What if both sides are right? What if both sides are missing the point entirely? Tartaria undoubtedly existed. In Europe, it referred to vast tracts of land in Asia, east of the Ural Mountains. The term was used to describe a distant foreign land which was poorly understood and mysterious. But according to proponents of the Tartarian theory, this area was the birthplace of a massive empire which spanned huge parts of the globe. Theorists claim this civilization achieved a level of culture, technology, and spirituality which far surpassed our own. Advanced free energy technologies powered majestic cities filled with glorious architecture, harmoniously balancing science, art, and spirituality. The peace, prosperity, and innovation of this civilization represents a golden age in human culture which has never again been equaled. According to theorists, the civilization was destroyed sometime around the late 19th century, leaving fragments and ruins throughout Asia, Europe, Eastern North America, and even far-flung places like the American West and South America. Many cite the existence of unexplainable architectural achievements as evidence of the lost civilization, claiming that these marvels can only be explained by the fact that they were inherited from a previous civilization. For example, the Broadwater Natatorium in Helena, Montana, seems out of place for a remote area that was little more than a fledgling mining town at the time. With its official date of construction at 1889, it existed before Montana even became a state. Yet, it looks like it belongs in some imperial capital. Theorists say that the disaster that destroyed Tartaria came as a result of some combination of a natural catastrophe, or mud flood, which physically destroyed the empire, and a deliberate sabotage by a dark cabal of forces which sought to wipe out Tartaria and erase any evidence of its existence. Who exactly benefited from the destruction of Tartaria is still disputed. Some point the finger at colonial powers like the British, secret societies like the Freemasons, or religious organizations like the Catholics or the Jews. It's not clear, but in any case, it's said that those in power conspired to suppress the true potential of humanity. Another important part of the theory is its connection to the world's fairs. These staged events were crucial moments in the erasure and rewriting of Tartaria's history. Massive expositions showcased the latest innovations in technology, industry, and so forth, attracting millions of visitors and captivating the world's imagination. But Tartarian theorists argue that the world's fairs had a darker purpose. They were carefully orchestrated shows, which were meant to normalize and legitimize a new world order. These expositions coincided with a period of technological advancement, which we now recognize as the Industrial Revolution. Tartarian theorists argue that these new technologies were actually appropriated from a previous civilization and corrupted to impose a new world order which alienated us from one another and from nature. Many Tartarian theorists go much deeper, but what I've just laid out is essentially the theory as it's most commonly understood. The question is it true? Does any of this hold any water at all? You've likely already made up your mind. Like with many conspiracy theories, people learning about Tartaria for the first time tend to fall into one of two camps. First, there are those who laugh it off, belittle it, poke 1,000 holes in its logic until it doesn't have a leg to stand on. Then there are those with whom the idea strikes a chord, and down the rabbit hole they go, believing it wholeheartedly. In reality, the truth lies somewhere in between. Is it factually accurate? Of course not. The theory is ridiculous at face value, but yet it resonates in a way that makes it somehow ring true. It alludes to something that its detractors can't seem to grasp, no matter how many hours they spend debunking it. That in modern society, we are alienated, cut off from our origins, from each other, from nature, and from ourselves. We don't have to point fingers or twist facts to acknowledge that we've lost our way. Yet, a yearning for communion with this lost empire, this forgotten wholeness, somehow seems forbidden. The lost empire of Tartaria is a modern myth. It shouldn't be taken literally, but rather interpreted as an explosion of energy from the collective unconscious. An act of spontaneous creation and authorship in an otherwise sterile and dogmatic world. It's something to believe in a world where belief itself is considered insane. Like a wild dream, it grows ever more fantastic and elaborate the more it's denied and suppressed. In a postmodern world that insists that the past is evil and that there is no divine truth or sacred order, the soul, insulted, will dream one up. That's what Tartaria is a result of. The idea of a paradise lost isn't new. Think of Atlantis. Think of the Garden of Eden. These are primordial memories of a golden age, where harmony and wholeness was a reality, or at least an ideal. According to Carl Jung, myths are natural. They exist not to deceive us, but to help us heal. We can keep from a child all knowledge of earlier myths, he says, but we cannot take from him the need for mythology. What is forgotten seeks to return, and it will. Everything balances in the end. Another curious motif in Tartarian theory is the prevalence of orphans. Theorists say that after the mud flood, or the catastrophe that destroyed Tartaria, countless children were left to wander the world without parents. These orphans, they say, were institutionalized or shipped elsewhere on trains, effectively severing an entire generation from its true origins. Some theorists point to statistics which show unusually high numbers of orphans at this time. But beyond this literal interpretation, the orphan can be viewed as a symbol for modern man, cut off from who he is and where he came from. Around the same time that Tartaria supposedly fell, Friedrich Nietzsche was writing about the death of God. God is dead, he declared. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned, has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? In the absence of the sacred, people started to worship new gods. Nationalism, capitalism, communism, or scientism. But none of them were enough. These are ideologies and dogmas. Some of them are very compelling. They put the world into a convenient and understandable box. That's all well and good, except that the world is not so. The wonders and the mysteries are left unaccounted for. And that's where Tartaria comes in. Hail Tartaria!